Before The Rock, before John Cena, before the WWE became a global empire, there was one name, one handlebar mustache, and one voice yelling, "What you gonna do, brother?" He wasn't just a wrestler. He was an icon, a household name, a walking, flexing, patriotic explosion of charisma who changed sports entertainment forever. This is not just a story about wrestling. This is the story of how Hulk Hogan body slammed his way into pop culture history and why his name still echoes decades later. Who is Hulk Hogan? The man, the mustache, the myth that made wrestling mainstream. Before there was a billion-dollar global sports entertainment empire, before WrestleMania was bigger than the Super Bowl, and before WWE action figures, lunchboxes, cartoons, movies, and video games flooded every kid's life in the 1980s and 90s, there was one man at the center of it all, Hulk Hogan. He wasn't just a superstar. He wasn't just the face of a company. Hulk Hogan was professional wrestling. If wrestling was religion, Hogan was its messiah, preaching 24-inch pythons, red and yellow glory, and American power through leg drops and flexing muscles. He was equal parts cartoon and icon, equal parts athlete and showman, and entirely unforgettable. Born as Terry Gene Bollea on August 11, 1953, in Augusta, Georgia, the man who would become Hulk Hogan had humble beginnings. He was a big kid, a bass player in a rock band, a gym rat, a beach bum. But fate had something else planned. One day, two wrestlers walked into the gym where Terry trained and spotted the massive 6'7" frame. Within weeks, he was training with wrestling legend Hiro Matsuda. And as every fan knows, Matsuda broke Hogan's leg in the very first session to test his commitment. Hogan came back, not because he loved pain, but because he loved the idea of becoming larger than life. He first wrestled under the name Sterling Golden, and then as the Super Destroyer. But it wasn't until Vince McMahon Sr. dubbed him Hulk Hogan that everything clicked. Inspired by his physique's resemblance to the Incredible Hulk and his Irish surname, the name stuck like a steel chair to the face. When Vince McMahon Jr. took over WWF in the early 1980s, he had a vision: take wrestling out of the smoky bingo halls and into the mainstream. But for that, he needed a superhero. He needed someone who could transcend the sport, someone who could sell tickets, lunchboxes, and dreams. He needed Hulk Hogan, and Hogan delivered. His rise was meteoric. In 1984, Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik to win his first WWF championship at Madison Square Garden. It was a moment that didn't just shift the trajectory of his career, it changed the business forever. Hulkamania was born. With his bandana, handlebar mustache, ripped shirt, and red and yellow attire, Hogan looked like a comic book character come to life. And he played the part to perfection. His promos were wild, his energy unmatched. He screamed into the microphone with veins bulging from his neck, eyes wide with fury and passion, telling kids to say their prayers, eat their vitamins, and believe in themselves. And they did. Millions of them. Across America. Across the world. By the mid-80s, Hulk Hogan was everywhere. He wasn't just wrestling in the main event of WrestleMania. He was WrestleMania. The first one, in 1985, saw Hogan team with Mr. T against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff, and it became a cultural phenomenon. Celebrities like Cyndi Lauper, Muhammad Ali, and Liberace were involved, but Hogan was the draw. People tuned in to see him. Not just win matches, but save the day. He embodied a certain type of American heroism, loud, patriotic, invincible. He would get beat down, knocked out, nearly broken in half, but then As if powered by some mythical source, he would hulk up, shaking his fists, pointing at his opponent with wild intensity, shrugging off punches like mosquito bites, and then delivering the big boot and leg drop. And just like that, boom, the crowd exploded. It wasn't just formula, it was ritual, it was religion. Through the late 80s and early 90s, Hogan was untouchable. He headlined WrestleManias. He starred in movies like No Holds Barred and Suburban Commando. He had a Saturday morning cartoon. He had his own pasta brand. He became a global icon, recognized in countries where no one even watched wrestling. His mere presence sold out arenas. His name printed on a poster guaranteed a full house. But more than all the merchandise and box office stats, what made Hogan truly special was the feeling he gave fans. When that real American theme song hit, when he walked down the aisle tearing his shirt, when he cupped his ear to the crowd, it didn't matter if you were 6 or 60. You felt it. You believed. For those few minutes, you were part of something epic. He wasn't the most technical wrestler. He wasn't putting on 5-star classics in the Tokyo Dome. But he was the most electrifying performer in the business before that term was even coined. He knew how to work the crowd, how to milk the drama, how to make a body slam feel like a cinematic climax. That was his genius. He made wrestling theater, and he was always the main character. And then, just when you thought his story had peaked, he reinvented himself completely. In 1996, at WCW's Bash at the Beach, Hulk Hogan turned heel for the first time in over a decade. Fans were stunned, shocked, outraged. This was Hulkamania. This was the guy who told kids to eat their vitamins. And now he was trashing fans, cheating in matches, and calling himself Hollywood Hogan. But here's the thing. It worked. By forming the New World Order, NWO, with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, Hogan sparked one of the greatest wrestling storylines of all time. He became a smug, villainous, black-bearded egomaniac, complete with feather boas and spray paint antics. And somehow, this version of Hogan became even bigger than before. He saved WCW from irrelevance. He helped them beat WWF in the Monday Night Wars for 83 consecutive weeks. He redefined what a wrestling heel could be, and he proved once again that he was more than a character. He was a storyteller. Even after the NWO era waned, Hogan continued to evolve. He returned to WWE in the early 2000s, and the fans welcomed him back like a lost king. Matches with The Rock, with Shawn Michaels, with Vince McMahon himself. They weren't technical masterpieces, but they were moments that made wrestling fans cry, cheer, chant, and remember why they fell in love with the business in the first place. Today, Hulk Hogan's legacy is complicated. Controversies, lawsuits, public scandals, they exist, but no one can erase the magnitude of what he built. No one can deny that Hulk Hogan took professional wrestling from the margins of society and body slammed it into the mainstream. He wasn't just a man, he wasn't just a wrestler. Hulk Hogan was a phenomenon. You may laugh at his promos now, you may roll your eyes at the cheese, but if you were a kid in the 80s or 90s, chances are he was your hero. Chances are you tore a shirt off your body in the mirror. Chances are you flexed your arms and yelled, "What you gonna do, brother?" And chances are it felt awesome. That's the magic of Hulk Hogan. That's the power of wrestling's original superhero. And in the end, Hulk Hogan did what no mortal ever dreamed. He took wrestling out of the bingo halls and body slammed it onto cereal boxes, movie posters, and every child's imagination. He may not have been the best technical wrestler, But brother, he was the reason wrestling became a global phenomenon. So, what you gonna do when nostalgia, legends, and 24-inch pythons run wild on you?